It is a great pleasure to be here in this incredible facility. I want to thank Lillian Baldoas and all of the members of Nikola Tesla Society of Alberta for providing me this opportunity to speak to you on a topic that I hold dearly to me. Now, the Alberta Culture and Tourism has a website that provides a lot of information about electricity here in Alberta. The concern is that it does not differentiate between the DC period and the AC period. In addition, it has no mention of the greatest inventor and contributor to electrification of Alberta, by that of course being Nikola Tesla and his patents that made it all possible. Whereas Edison is featured, yet we utilize Tesla's inventions today, to this very day. Thomas Edison backed DC current, and he perfected the incandescent light bulb that was the standard until recent, and if you watched it downstairs, you realize that that incandescent light bulb is no longer used, not even able to be sold. The key point was that Edison was heavily invested in DC power, and as a result, it triggered his approach to everything. But the DC had one major flaw. Power could only be transmitted to a maximum of about 2 miles, and even then, it would drop off over the distance. This required generating stations to be built close to the customers. Most were in heavily populated areas, and the stations were generally powered by coal. On the other side, we have the alternating current, and that was dominated by Nikola Tesla and George Westinghouse. And it became to be known also as a perfect partnership between the two of them. Contrary to belief, Nikola Tesla did not invent AC electricity. Tesla invented and patented both the electric induction motor and then the AC polyphase system of generators, motors, and transformers. This made it possible to produce AC power, transmit it over long distances, and then the motors could be put to use using the power. George Westinghouse had been working on an AC electricity and recognized the superiority and the importance of Tesla's series of patents. He bought the patents, and Tesla then started working with him to prove that this was the system was superior than DC. And yes, it clearly was. That was the key element. It was superior. AC did not have the distance limitation that DC had. They could harness power of waters and transmit it to customers over long distances. In 1896, Tesla said his system could transmit power 500 miles. That's 250 times the distance with DC power without power loss. Soon, Edison saw this as a threat, and he launched a vicious attack on the Tesla-Westinghouse partnership and the AC system. The battle became to be known as the War of the Currents. After the Columbus World's Fair, AC was proclaimed the winner, and the system was promptly put to use to harness the power of Niagara Falls. This early timeline shows the electrification history of Canada. The early stations were DC, but by 1987, the newer stations were primarily hydro-generating stations that used AC system. This chart is by no means complete. For example, there is no mention on this chart about Alberta power generating stations. Electrification, earlier known AC stations was Quebec at Trois-Rivières that sent power over the longest distance in the British Empire at that time, 27 kilometers. Victoria followed soon after, and its distance was 21 kilometers. Both of these stations operated for decades, but have been decommissioned. The next station that was very important is the Decew Power Generating Station. It's located in St. Catharines, and it's probably one of the most important and durable of all the early stations. This year marks the 125th anniversary of continuous power from this facility. 7 to 8 years later, 3 new stations were built in Niagara Falls, Ontario. The Q station is important because its distance was 56 kilometers, and that was longer than any of the others. In fact, it was the second longest power transmission in the world when it transmitted power. According to this article that you see here, the group consulted Tesla on the subject. He told them that they could transmit the power, but he even said you can go 800 kilometers. The significant point being here is that this article is dated August of 1896. That predates the transmission of power from Niagara Falls to Buffalo over a distance of only 17 miles. So they set out to build the station. I hope that I have piqued your interest to discover the rich history of electrification of both Edmonton and Canada. A plug for Canadian tourism. Discover the history on your next vacation. Electric history can be found from coast to coast. Enjoy the discovery. But if you do not have the time to take a vacation, visit the Edmonton Power Historical Foundation on the grounds of the Leduc West Antique Museum. You will see this as an interior, and so you see a lot of equipment that was used historically in this plant, and some more. So if you attend, you'll be able to inquire and hear the stories about all of this equipment, some of it AC, some of it DC. As noted earlier in the presentation, there are a lot of decommissioned stations. Most have been completely demolished and either replaced on site, or the power is shipped from other stations to the area. Niagara Falls early stations, however, have not been demolished. They were decommissioned between 1974 and 2006. The first two decommissioned stations were stripped of their equipment, and so all that remains is the buildings. The one difference is the last station, decommissioned in 2006. It was left completely intact. It is as if they collected their documents and handed over the keys to the Niagara Parks Commission. Some tools and even the blueprints for the station were discovered. The former William Bird Franklin Station, as it was known, was repurposed into the attraction. In 2021, after undergoing a significant restoration and updating to current standards for safety, it was open to the public as a Niagara Parks Power Station. My wife and I were privileged to be invited to tour the station just before it opened to the public. Phase 1 of the station was July 1st, 2021. Later that year, Phase 2, which was called Currents. And the following year, the tunnel was opened. This is now the second best thing to do and experience in Niagara Falls. Nobody can beat the falls themselves. Here are some pictures inside the station. As you can see, everything is in there. And the picture on the bottom right, that is the current display that is a night show. This station is like an iceberg. You only see a small portion of it above ground. To view what is below the main deck, guests descend in a glass elevator to reach the tunnel. The tunnel was actually the spillway for the discharged water. The water was used to generate electrical power. But when it was done doing its work, it was returned to the river, the cleanest form of electrical power. Visitors can now travel 670 meters, roughly 2,200 feet, to the edge of the lower river and see a breathtaking view of both the river and the American Falls and the Canadian Falls on the right-hand side as you come out of the tunnel. While at the station, check out the Tesla display. There is so much to discover here. Guests can use a QR reader to connect to an app that will provide you with so much information as you move from area to area in the station. This one link you have is of Nikola Tesla, and you will be able to move back and forth and get even more information. So as you start, just feel free to scroll back and forth and you'll get a lot more information. Now, as we've already heard, Nikola Tesla's been gaining recognition. over the past couple of decades. The recognition here, of course, in Canada. It started in Niagara Falls with the proclamation of the first Nikola Tesla Day in 2003. The statue came in 2006, and since 2015, accolades with Nikola Tesla Boulevard and introduction of the student awards and scholarships. Soon, we will have the public art project that will tell the story of Tesla's direct connection to Hamilton. As the Ontario license plate says, it is yours to discover. Discover Tesla power.